I'm no expert. It's been a minute, but here we are. And today marks the fifth anniversary of Kobe Bryant's iconic and legend building final game in the NBA, the infamous Mamba out. Now, Kobe Bryant in his final seasons wasn't the player that he used to be. He wasn't the dominant force that he used to be, at least not physically. He had all the mental, he had all the skill shot wise, but his body just wasn't able to do it at the consistent level ever since he injured his Achilles, broke his Achilles in that game that we all know versus the Golden State Warriors, where he shot two free throws on a broken Achilles before walking off the court. In his final game 5 years ago against the Utah Jazz, where he scored 60 points, and they weren't just 60 fluff points, there were 60 points that were necessary to win the game. Kobe Bryant put an exclamation point on the legend that is and was his career. I remember that day. I remember before the game, I posted on social media a YouTube clip of Kobe Bryant in the playoffs against the Utah Jazz, who at that point had beaten the Lakers a couple times in the playoffs on the way to the finals. That's when Kobe and Shaq were together, but Kobe was still young, and that's before Phil Jackson had come in. Those were in the Del Harris days. But anyways, Kobe shot some air balls in some crucial moments down the stretch of a game against the Utah Jazz. Now, I remember that game. Nick Van Exel was one of my favorite Lakers at the time, and he was hot. And he had hit some shots, and Kobe Bryant airballed a few shots. So that the day of the game, Kobe's final game, prior to the game, I posted that clip of him shooting air balls saying, look how far Kobe's come. He went from being, a guy who blew the game because he airballed some shots to now here he is in his final game, and it happens to be against Utah. Now, for me, it was significant. Of course, I had no idea he was going to score 60 points, but in fitting Kobe fashion, Mamba, one of the best to ever do it. I mean, and for us LA Lakers fans, we revere Kobe as our favorite player, no doubt, and at least most of us do. And he just gave us a show that we will never forget. Now, he started off the game horribly. I think he went 0 for 7 or something like that. But during the flow of the game, his teammates, his young squad that he had, Julius Randle, who, by the way, is playing very well, and all Laker fans who saw him back when he first joined the Lakers knew he was going to be a good player. He roasted the Lakers last night in the Knicks' victory over the Lakers. Of course, Jordan Clarkson was there, and all the youngsters that were there in Kobe's final season, those two most notably. Everyone was deferring to Kobe by the second half. I mean, he had caught fire, so to speak, but the fact that he scored his points within the flow of the game, very similarly to the way he did in his 81-point game against the Raptors, it wasn't him padding his stats. It was him hitting shots that were necessary to win the game. And for him to hit those shots like that in a season that he had that was just, as we all know, subpar for a performer such as Kobe, for a player of Kobe's caliber, for him to score 60 points that way in his final game was only right. And to do it in a necessary fashion to win the game, it just made it all the more special. Now, 5 years has gone by quickly since that game occurred, and of course we all know that we lost Kobe Bryant tragically last year, early in 2020, but tonight marks the 5th year anniversary of his Mamba out games, and it's just, you gotta really, if you love basketball, no matter what team you vote for, what team you root for, you got to appreciate and love Kobe's Mamba mentality and the effort that he put forth night in and night out, regardless of his limited or his deteriorated physical ability. He was 36 at the time, where we can look to a player like LeBron, who up until his injury 4 or 5 weeks ago was playing at a level for any 36-year-old that was like, wow. I mean, this guy's in phenomenal shape. Kobe, unfortunately, had an Achilles injury, and he was already, later in his career by the time he had his Achilles injury, and then he was trying to carry the load and be sort of a mentor to these young players that the Lakers team wasn't going anywhere in Kobe's final seasons, but he gave Lakers fans something to remember, and NBA fans and basketball fans everywhere something to remember in his final game, which occurred 5 years ago on this night against the Utah Jazz when he scored 60 points in his final game and hit us with this speech and dropped the mic, Mamba out. Now, I'm no expert, but that is going to be, in my opinion, one of the most legendary final games in anybody's NBA career, especially since he stuck with the franchise his whole career. He never switched. He never changed. He wore the purple and gold his whole career. And he just did it for the fans. He did it for his family. And he did it for his love and passion for the game. So, we got to celebrate that and take a moment to appreciate what that means in sports history. And rest in peace, Kobe. You will always be missed. UNO.